The Bible here, the Apostle Paul is talking about the traits of evil people. These are people who always go into homes and they get into the lives of what he calls here weak-willed women. But for the sake of the teaching that we are having here, we are taking the weakness across the board. So it's not only women who are weak, we've got some men who are weak as well. And he clearly taught Timothy to avoid those who claim to know God, yet they live in sinful ways. Now, what Paul is actually describing is a smaller group within a category of the wicked ones. And when you look at this, not all those false teachers were involved in these evil actions, but he describes these people as con men. Now, it's very important that we begin to know and to understand that they are people who will use and adulterate the gospel of Christ, and they will tell you things just to manipulate your life. Now, when you're weak-minded, you're just going to take anything and everything. For example, if you're going through some situations, you're manipulated, you lose your money, and you lose things that are precious to you. And, he uses the Greek word achimalotizonetis, now, which implies a leading away, taking captive. Make your life that kind of a life where you are standing firm on the word of God. You're not allowing just any Tom, Dick, and Harry to come into your life and lead you astray. When we're talking about this word in Greek, it implies one who turns a certain way of thinking into something else. Now, I want you to know that God is able to do whatever it is that you want him to do. He'll do it for you, and don't allow yourself to be manipulated. And now these scams of ministers, in other words, they were actually thieves. It may also mean those who physically seduced these women. You find that there are people who can come into your life with some form of seductions. If you're not careful, they'll totally destroy your life. The idea of a false teacher taking advantage of people in their own homes, would have been repulsive to Timothy and other believers. Now, these men were targeting those who were vulnerable. When people are vulnerable, this is when they end up, just believing in anything, and they can even lose their hard-earned money because they're not confident of their position. You're being taken advantage of by people who want to manipulate you. As a pastor, sometimes you come across people vanajera kutongoshandiswa, and you find a person phoning you, apostle tachikumbura kumutibatsire, takati kugadzira pasuru yenyu kunoko, and these people, they're so used to being abused that they've shut down their form of reasoning. And you find Apostle Paul calls them weak-willed women. And such people are having three concerns that the apostle begins to talk about in this particular text. First, he says burdened. These people were burdened with the sins. In other words, they had a sinful lifestyle, and in addition to the problems that brought upon them the false prophets. Now, when you're not moving right and just allowing anything and anyone to manipulate your life, that is what we call a travesty. It's not right for you just to continue living a life that is abused, a life that does not have meaning and sinfulness. And some people, they want to use the ways of God as a panacea, as a way of dealing with their problem of sinfulness. And hence there is that openness and that weak-willedness where they can't take their position, take their stand against manipulations. And this is what the Apostle Paul says, that they were sinful, burdened with sins. You know, the simple equation here is simply to live a holy life. If I live a holy life, shun the wrong, do the right, I know my Lord will make a way for me. But the minute that you continue operating a life that is in contradiction to the ways that are expected by God, then in trying to compensate themselves, they actually now begin to be manipulated. Now, the second thing he talks about here, he says, these women were led astray by various passions. Now, these are likely not only referring to sexual passions, but to various areas in which the weakness occurred. So he says they are led astray by certain passions. Now, listen to this very carefully. These are people who have allowed manipulation to come upon their lives because they are being led astray, number one, by their sinful life. And also the Bible talks about they are also led astray by various passions. Now, when we're talking about passions, we're talking about a person who is sensual and not living a life that is consistent with what God says about them. Listen to me very carefully. It is very important that you recognize your life and move out of every power of the enemy in Jesus' mighty name. I'll be back as we continue. This track is coming through there from Breeze Music, Nelsie B, and Komsoro.
Go.